I ruled out my lines, my starting point. I took my bust measurement, my under bust, my half length, which would also serve as my waist, my hip, and my full length, and also 1 inch extra for my sewing allowance. So I ruled out these lines so they are clear enough. And then I took my shoulder measurement. My shoulder is 15, so 15 divided by 2 is 7.5. So 7.5 and plus half inch for sewing allowance. I came down by a 1 inch slope, and then I took my round armhole measurement, which is 7.6. So I got that 7.6 is my bust measurement, which is 40 divided by 6 plus 1.5. So that's how I got that line, which serves as my chest line. I looked for the middle point between my 7.6, and then I ruled my curve, the curve for my armhole. So that's how I got it. Then I took my nipple to nipple measurement, which is 7, so that's 3.5 divided by 2 is 3.5. I took that measurement all the way to my half length, and then I ruled a line at that point. Now I want a princess dart for this dress, so for me to get the curve, I took at the point for my under bust, I marked 2 inches on my left side, and on the right I took half inch. At my waist point I took half inch, and then on the other side I took 1.5 inch. So that means I took 2 inch at my waist point, and then 2.5 at my under bust point. So I ruled the curve at that point just to give me the desired shape that I want. I also for my shoulder point I came down by 3.5 inches, and then I ruled that line directly to my bust line. So I took my measurement. My bust measurement is 38. So I took that measurement plus 1 inch sewing allowance. My under bust measurement is 32. I took that measurement plus my 1 inch sewing allowance. Also, I came down by 1.5 inch from the 3.5 inches point and marked that also to my bust line. At my waist, I also took my waist measurement, and don't forget I skipped the points. I skipped the areas where I'm going to be cutting off. So after marking that, I also went ahead to mark my 1 inch sewing allowance. I extended my armhole measurement, to include, the 1.5 inch that are taken at my shoulder and my round hole point. So after that, I took my hip measurement. My hip is 41, so that's 10.5. And then at the full length point at the bottom of my dress, I minus 1.5 from my hip length, from my hip size, 1.5, and then I curved it down. So also I came down by 4 inches for my darts, and I ruled the line upwards. I took a 1 inch dart at the waistline for my dress. I'm going to be cutting that out, so even if you see that the lines are not aligned. So I took my waist measurement, and then I marked my sewing allowance, and then I connected it to my hip point. I used my curve ruler to mark it out properly so that it's not out. And then I took a bust dart. My bust dart, I came down from my bust line by 1.5 inches, ruled it to my bust, and then I shaded that area because I'll be cutting it off. So I went ahead and checked my measurements. My neck depth, I took 3 inches by 2.5. So I'm going to be cutting that out. So I went ahead to cut the back of my dress. I ruled out 1.5 inches as my zip allowance. So my zip allowance 1.5 inches, and then I took my went ahead to rule out my measurement. So my shoulder 7.5 plus 5 0.5 inches. I came down by my exact 7.6 inches, just like the front of the dress, and then I ruled a line. Now the back of my dress is shorter than my front, because remember that from the bust in the front I took out 1.5 inches. So I'm going to do my half length is 17 inches, so minus that 1.5, it will give me 15.5. So I'm going to be ruling my back at 15.5. so that's going to be my waistline for the back of my dress, because the back our back measurements are most times shorter than the front. So I went ahead to also take my nipple to nipple measurements. I ruled out a line, and I took half inch on both sides. I connected it to my bust line, and then I took my connect my shoulder point. Also, what I did was, the distance between the shoulders, I came in the middle and then I ruled a line to the shoulder. I took out my measurements also, my actual measurements. I took my actual measurements. Just as I was taking that, I also included a 1 inch sewing allowance, just like I did for the front of my dress. So that's my sewing allowance that I took. Also, I'm going to be cutting the front part on fold. That's why I labeled it that way. I measured the distance between the front of my dress, that's my waist to my hip. I took the same line because the back is somewhat shorter, so I measured what I had between my waist and my hip, and the same thing between my hip to the full length of the dress, so that they can both align at the end of the day. So if you see that the lines, one line is looking shorter than the other, it's because of the 1.5 that we have removed from the back waistline. So I took out my measurement, so my hip measurement, and then the bottom also. So my hip measurement minus 1.5 inches. At my waist point, I removed ½ inches and I connected that line to my hip line, and then I came down by 5 inches and then came out by 1 inch. So this is just for the bum shaping of my dress. So if your bum is bigger than mine, you can come down by 5.5 or 6 inches. So I also went ahead to minus the 1.5 from my hip measurement to give me the pencil shape that I want. I came down also for my dart measurement by 6 inches. So I took a 1 inch dart for the front of my dress. My neckline is also 3 inches, but I came down by ½ inch because it's the back of the dress. So I went ahead to cut out my pattern, my front pattern. So I'm cutting out my front pattern firstly before I do the back, removing all the shaded areas just like that. So for the bust dart, I went ahead to fold it in so I closed that up because I do not need that part. I closed the bust dart up, and then so also for the bottom of my dress, I don't want a dart on my dress. I don't want any dart. So I closed my dart and eliminated the dart from the side of the dress so that I won't have any lines at all. So I did the same thing for the back. I cut out the back. Now for the back of my dress, after I split all the parts open, everything, I went ahead also to close it with a masking tape because I want the back of my dress to just be one piece. So I also eliminated the darts for the skirt area of my dress. I cut it out from the side, and then I used the masking tape to close everything together so that when I'm cutting this piece, it will just be one for the back, while the front will have 3, just like you can see. So I closed it up completely, so I have just 1 for the back, and then I have 3 for the front of my dress. So I'm going to be cutting it out now. So I use the pieces just like I have to cut out the on my fabric. My fabric is really small, so I'm using it's actually just smaller than 1.5 inch, but I'm going to manage this. I'm going to manage what I have. So normally you should be able to use between a 1.5 to 2 yards of fabric depending on what you have. So I've had this for a while. I'm just trying this out with what I have. So let's see how it goes. So now I've gone ahead to cut all the pieces, and this is what it looks like. So to cut out my armhole, what I did was to measure my armhole from the pattern that I have. So I had 9, so I would know what to fold my fabric by. So minus 1.5 from the 9 inches, so that gave me 7.5. So I folded my fabric by 7.5. The length of my sleeve is 8, so I cut the fabric at 6 inches, 6 inches plus extra 1 inch for sewing allowance, so that I can join the top and the bottom together. So the reason why I cut at 6 is because I want to join a white fabric at the bottom of my sleeve. So you just like you can see in the thumbnail, it also has an extension of white fabric, so that's why I'm cutting it at that point. And I'm going to cut out my armhole. I'm sure we all can cut out her armhole. If you cannot, just check through the previous videos to find. And so I went ahead to my sewing machine to join the front pieces together. Now you know the front we have 3 pieces, so I joined the top part first, and then I went ahead to join the bottom of my dress. So this is me joining. So I joined the front area of my dress. Now remember that the back piece of my dress is just one piece. So it's just one, but in 2, because I'm going to have to insert a zip. So I inserted my zip, and then I joined the front to the back. This dress has a collar and a sleeve, so I attached everything just like it's a pretty straightforward tutorial. So now I did not include the cutting of my collar in this video. For if you want to see how I put the collar, how I cut the collar, please watch the next video so that you can see how that looks. So I'm going to be showing you a picture of what it looks. This is what it looks like. It came out really beautiful. Well, so thank you very much. Please like, share.